Oh, really?
Start the recording. I didn't know where it was sitting there, so I didn't want to start cleaning tables. Yes.
Did you bring your tap shoes? I just have my
We'll get her next time. We'll tell her that it's a tap party, that she has to wear shoes, and she'll be the only one.
I am going to talk.
And I'm gonna bring my friend back to this semester. She's 4 with an attitude.
I remember she's had to.
Maybe.
Well, we may about that. David White kind of. Yeah. Yeah, we talked to him this morning at the mission.
Oh, solar, okay, solar system. For some reason, I thought you meant like solar plants. I was like, what is she doing? Okay.
But she was, now she's putting together, she's learning herself. So she wanted to be part of what she's putting together.
Yeah.
And she was
Right.
I got a issue.
and clearly finished.
Good. Someone needs to do that.
And when she did her solar system,
She's still kind of new for you to be scaring off that quickly. Can we at least finish training her before you start terrifying her about public speaking? Her face
Squeezes my stomach. I figure I think everything is possible. They go into one thing that I've already stand out
you'll get it. You'll be all right.
I guess, I don't know, I didn't know it was.
Henry's mic. Henry, I'm talking. Can you hear me? This more parts I just want to hear, see if you're getting sound across the line.
Nutrition offers precisely balanced nutrition to improve their ability to get up and go every day.
Monitoring the chat in case somebody fires off the.
I didn't even think of that, but I can.
Somebody fires off.
I don't know if it's not. I don't think so, because we're just connected them to the wall. Right.
Brian, shall we go 2-minute warning for good measure?
David said he's going to.
I don't want to linger, and we've got a good crew on the internet. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a 2-minute warning. In about 2 minutes, we're going to go ahead and call this session to order. So if you need to do anything prior to the meeting, you've got about 2 minutes.
No remain in Mexico policies have created an incredible immigration crisis where reportedly up to 2 million illegal immigrants will enter the United States.
Somebody's got something on. Oh.
Continued unemployment, social welfare programs without workforce cause a shortage of
Someone saying that Henry's mic is turned on. Oh, okay. There. I've muted him.
Okay, it's muted. Just for you folks that are on the internet, we will be starting in about a minute. And the one thing, if you have any questions, we'll ask you to put that through the chat line and we'll acknowledge you. Or I don't know if we've got the hands up button on this for attention, but we will do our best to be monitoring what's going on online as well. For anybody that could unmute for just a second, are you hearing all right?
Loud and clear.
Great, thank you. We call the Grant County Board of Commissioners to order during session to review, discuss, and hear from Grant County public with reference to solar energy, both residential energy as well as solar farms. Note that all three commissioners are present, and we will move right into our purpose statement. You've already heard me at least address the folks online. We're going to be listening for your concerns, your thoughts, your questions. We will have some of the folks online that will ask questions. We'll start first here in the room if you have things that you would like addressed, but we will speak to those issues both from the commissioner's point of view and area plan. Gentlemen, do you have any comments, first of all, about the solar energy? All right. We're going to, again, have someone monitoring the chat box for our online personnel so that if they have questions or would like to make a point, we'll give them opportunity to do that at the right time. We're going to turn it over to our area plan director, and he's going to give us a brief introduction for our special session.
Thanks everyone for coming tonight. For those, I'm Brian Watt, I'm the area plan director. I've just got a really brief PowerPoint to just kind of discuss a little bit about how we got to here tonight. So just kind of starting off, we had a discussion about putting together a solar ordinance back in July. From that, we started going through, we looked, about that time there were 42 jurisdictions that actually had adopted solar ordinance in the state. We looked at 15 to 20 of them, came up with the top 5, and kind of went, used those as our tip, put together the start, the first draft of the ordinance. One of the biggest things that we found as we started getting into this, and as I'm sure a lot of you guys who are in the energy business, there are no two ordinances that are the same. Different terminologies, costs, setbacks, overall requirements, even to the point of different sizes. We put a couple of examples up there as far as, Randolph County is all the way up at 48 pages, Huntington's at 3. So this was really a matter of taking the ordinances we went through, finding our 5 best, and again, just trying to find something right down the middle that we can start playing with. For those of you that don't know, as far as the state of Indiana and Indiana code on solar energy, there's almost little to nothing there. There is actual solar energy systems in the code, but they talk about heating, cooling, and lighting. But just to kind of point out as far as what the state is looking at and the state's mindset, you can kind of see highlighted in there some of the terminology as far as the state solar, encourage, promote, et cetera, et cetera. And all this is in your packets too. Currently in Grant County, right now, according to the North American Industry Classification System, we classify solar farms as utilities. Here's our current land use table. A utility is allowed in every zone with the exception of mobile homes in Grant County. Our current order of approval right now for solar farms would actually be to come to area plan with a development plan. From there, it would go to the commissioners for a recommendation and then to the Board of Zoning Appeals for final approval. The issue we run into there is, if we do get final approval, Grant County has no regulations on any type of solar farms. As many of you are probably aware, right now Grant County has 4 solar farms already. We've got one at Madison Grant, Oak Hill, American Electric Power, AP, and then there's also one in Gas City that was ours until it was annexed by Gas City. Another thing we run into is when we start talking about cost, what we find through different examples here are, just like terminology and everything else, costs are all over the board as far as application fees, permitting fees, etc. Up here right now is kind of what we have projected to look at and discuss tonight. And then if we go to our next page, thanks to Delaware County, as they put their solar ordinance together, they actually went out and got the cost for 11 different counties. One of the things that I've conveyed as we've kind of put this together is application fees can be anywhere from 0 to 20,000. Permitting fees, as you can see, can be anywhere from 500 to 1750 per megawatt. So again, it's kind of all over the board. It's important that we figure this out again when we talk about Grant County not having any regulations. If you get into the next sheet, or next page, you'll see Madison Grant came in and put their solar farm in, and we actually charged them a total of $35. Oak Hill came in, put their solar farm in, we charged them a total of $35. AEP came in, put their large solar farm in, and we charged them $100. So you can kind of see between the last page and this page, we are really missing out on an opportunity there in Grant County. Also, what we're charging right now for the residential end of it, we charge $40 per roof. And for our ground-mounted solar arrays, we charge the same thing as we would a yard barn or shed currently. So one of the things we wanted to do in our focus, basically that we know there are already solar farms and systems are already in Grant County installed in operation. The solar farms are allowed through special exception to the BZA and all zoning districts. We've got several solar energy farm systems projects that are currently being planned out all around Grant County. And on the residential end of it, area plan has seen a record number of residential systems coming in this year. So really our bottom line is, and that's kind of our focus, they're already here, they're already allowed. We know there's several that are coming. The question becomes, do we want them regulated or not? So that's kind of where the ordinance came from. Here just noting some of the big questions today that we've got on the draft. I know I've talked to some. It's got some input on this. One is the cost of the application fees and permitting fees. We wanted to discuss the developmental plan and the approval process of whether or not we wanted to go area plan commission, and then to the commissioners, or if we wanted to go area plan commissioners and board of zoning appeals. As we get through the ordinance, you'll see in text in red, those are areas where we've actually got questions, things that we're looking at, things that we're wanting direction on. A lot of that is in the site and landscape requirements. Again, some of the stuff that is in red, I might have found in a couple of ordinances. Liability insurance. Same thing goes, economic development agreements are in some, not in others. And then the other thing was to get department input into their portions of the ordinance. I think we've got everyone here for the most part, other than Timber. I thought he was joking when he said he might not come.
I texted him.
Keep talking to him. So that's really basically how we got here. We've gotten through a couple of drafts. We're ready to put it in front of everyone and really just start getting feedback and discussion. I know. How do you guys want to? Do you want to take questions one by one, or open it up?
We can actually do you want input on the entire, or just those points that you put up?
Those were the big ones.
Why don't we just start in that order, and you, number one, see if anybody has a comment, question on that particular area. That way we can at least have some semblance of an order there. And if you have a question that spurs off of that initial one, that's fine. We will need you, at least for recording purposes, when you're acknowledged and move up, please come up to the podium. We need your name, your address, and your concerns, comments. And so we'll start first with that number one in your things to discuss, and see if anybody wants to do that. We'll just move down the line. Cost for applications and fees, yes.
Just open discussion.
I'm Raymond Bear, First Deputy Surveyor, Grant County, and I think somewhere in it needs to go before the drainage board. So I have approval from the regulated drains to make sure they don't warn.
We do have that. That is actually
To approach them, yes, but I didn't know if it was actually to go to the drainage board with the plan.
if we get back into requirements for improvement location permits, section B number 2 is approved drainage plan. A drainage plan for construction and operation must be approved by the Grant County Drainage Board prior to the issuance of any permit.
Love it when a plan comes together. Thanks for asking, Raymond. Any other questions right now on, or statements on cost for applications, fees, and permitting? Anyone online have that questions concerning costs for applications, fees, or permitting? All right, what's number 2? Revision to development plan approval process. Questions or comments there, Ryan, that you want to make that may spur anyone to discussion?
As far as that is trying to decide which way we want to go. Do we want to, it's going to come to area
Area
plan.
plan commission to the, or through the area plan commission, then the commissioners to BZA. Which way do we want to go?
Currently, we are going area plan to commissioners to board of zoning. It was discussed that we may want to look at this like a plain unit development on a case by case that would actually come before area plan and then to the area plan commission for recommendation up to the commission.
Okay. Sure.
Hi, my name is Tom Scoder. I'm with a company called Invenergy, 1 South Wacker in Chicago is our address. Just want to say first off, thank you for the time everyone today. We are one of the companies Ryan mentioned that's looking at a proposed project in the county right now in the earlier stages. For this particular section, it would certainly be our preference to have it go to the plan commission, and then the commissioners following that. So I did just want to voice that. And something that I did want to mention as well, just as it's kind of outlining the hearing process with the plan commission currently in the ordinance, it would be nice to maybe have some language where we're talking about what exactly is being approved with the hearing. Just for example, are we meeting the ordinance requirements? Yes, no, maybe, and why? Currently right now, it just seems a little bit more subjective as it's written. So it would be nice to kind of just have language in there that's clearly stated, do we meet the requirements? Yes or no? Just bringing a little bit more objectivity to the actual hearing itself when it comes time for the development plan. And I would just maybe echo that with the commissioners as well. Just for the projects of the size we're talking about, there can be some risk involved anytime there's more approvals involved. So the more objective we can look at these approvals and say, are we meeting the requirements that have been very well thought out and well drafted here? Yes or no? And I just wanted to voice that, and I think this is a really great start to an ordinance that not only makes solar potentially developable in the county, but protects the citizens of Grant County too. So I just want to say thank you to Ryan and his team for putting this together.
Thank you, Tom.
The question across chat is, can the agenda or order of topics be shared online? Is there a way to, that has to be done on that computer over there, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think it shows how to do that next time too.
The answer is we don't think so, but we may get an IT guy helping us shortly. We'll find out if we can get that agenda on. All right. You have a question or comment?
Yes. Ryan, kind of circle back to number 1, application fees, permitting fees. In the previous conversation, you had some sentiments that were too high. That sentiment no longer carry weight, or?
Yeah. When I had originally put this together, the original suggestion was, as far as residential goes, we would charge $100 set fee, and then we actually split off commercial to a major and minor. My suggestion for minor commercial was 1 acre to 10 acres, with a set $1,000 fee for permits and a set $5,000 fee for application fees. My thought process behind that is generally when we get 10 acres or less, we are usually into the Oak Hill, the Madison Grant type of solar farms that are used for on-site consumption mostly. So a lot of those smaller schools and that sort of stuff, we would actually be giving them a little bit of a break on it. And then on the major commercial, as we've kind of talked about, you're kind of getting into a lot of money there, so that's where I'm kind of looking at you guys. Our example for 1,000 acres, almost every one of them were anywhere from 100,000 to 250,000, with only a couple of them less.
And that's here in the state of Indiana.
That's
All over the US.
counties, and surrounding us.
That's surrounding county, did you say?
We looked at, well, I'll go back to that PowerPoint. If you look on the Delaware County actually put that together for us. So Miami County, they had a $10,000 application fee with a permit fee not to exceed $40,000. Montgomery County, they basically broke down to $50 per each 100 acres with no application fee. And what Marta did in Delaware County is she based all of these on 1,000 acres. So if we get down to Knox County, their permitting fees would equal $103,000. Henry County, $125,000 to $250,000. Posey County, $170,000. Pulaski, $125,000. Randolph County, $225,000. White County was $175,000. Jay County, $175,000. Then others in there, like Porter County, they did a $2,000 flat fee for permits, plus $250 of that going to unsafe building structures. So it's all over the board. It's almost a whatever you want to do. And I think what a lot of the energy companies will tell you is they're going to look at some of that and say, is Grant County friendly to solar?
Would you consider these a deterrent?
Again, I looked at something down the middle of the road. As far as major goes, you know, a lot of these had $17.50 per megawatt, so I kind of put that in there as a starter. The 10,000 is kind of going right in the middle. Sure. Yeah.
It's a really good question. It's tricky too. Hey, Dalton Carr, I'm with Apex, another solar developer working in the county. We're to the west of Marion, going northwest. But yeah, this issue came up for us too while we were reviewing the ordinance. And you're right. I mean, the fees are all over the board, and we expect the fees to be high for application fees. Something new, takes a lot of work on the part of the county, different agencies and groups looking at this thing over a long period of time. And like Ryan said, there's a benefit to that application submitted. The goal is to not have it be a deterrent, but have it be a stepping stone, right? Something where the company has to be awfully serious to enter this process, know what they're doing, have done most of their homework to get to the table and apply. But like Ryan said, we do see things all over the board. I will say that at 2,000 per megawatt, that's the structure we go. You know, we're talking about 1,000 acres that could be in the order of 150 to 170 megawatts-ish. And that's something that pushes us beyond 300,000 for the application itself. That is a scary figure. And from a business standpoint, it just comes down to risk, right? Early in the process, we have all of the review to undergo. And sometimes that can be a deterrent in a way. And so what we'd like to brainstorm is something like either a reduction of that fee, something more like what we see on the table 150, 225, somewhere in there. Or alternatively, if we could have a gated structure where we say, okay, we're making sure we're paying for this review as we go, and maybe it's the entirety of that fee is due by the end of the process, which helps us out quite a bit. It's for anyone in the world, it is a lot of money, especially as we're not sure how the process goes. The county might review it day one and say, look, this doesn't work, and we need to start back to the beginning. But to that end, I guess just to have some protection or just some guardrails to understand, what's that maximum fee we might be looking at as well. Or alternatively, can we stage that fee such that the longer we're in the process, the more we're paying for it.
That's intriguing. Have we talked at all about the concept as pay as you go through that process?
Is anyone else doing that?
I guess everyone does it different. I will say, we do a lot of work, as I'm sure GX and Barron, you both do across the country. And everyone's got a different structure. For some of the most thorough review that's done in the country in Ohio, there's state level review where you work with different agencies, you have one guiding agency, the Power Standard Board, and different folks that are applying over the course of a year or two of review. That when we pay, I think the ceiling price on that is $110,000 for that state review. So that's one realm where they just say, because this is going to be so lengthy, because we're going to have to consult so many experts in their fields, we need to make sure we're getting paid, and that's up front. I haven't seen a fee as high as I think we're seeing here, where it's around 300,000 per megawatts. So that's where I kind of think maybe there's some room to balance into where it works for everyone. So just trying to be creative. I haven't seen that gating, particularly at the state level, but of course, this is your game. It's your ordinance design, and it's just offering that here.
Questions? Thank you. Tim?
Good afternoon, Tim Eckerly with the Grant County Economic Growth Council. Having been a veteran of many large-scale commercial projects in this community, I would recommend that you follow matrix as you suggested, as Ryan suggested, where it goes from the Plan Commission to the county commissioners. It is large. I mean, this project is not totally out of what the scope of the Board of Zoning Appeals and deals with on a regular basis. It's not talking about getting close to a neighbor, but multiple neighbors. We're talking about a rather sophisticated analysis that's been done with drainage and everything else. Again, the commissioners are kind of the logical place for an elected body to make that decision. And I would recommend that it would behooves all government to look at the true cost of not setting a fee to be punitive, but rather cover their costs. You could also look at a fee structure where you say you have to go out and hire an outside consultant that's mutually agreeable, that cost being borne by the applicant if there's some sophisticated problem that arises. So an open-ended fee structure, because again, I think especially it's based on megawatts, not acreage, because at the end of the day, these arrays are going to get more and more sophisticated, more and more efficient, so they're going to generate more and more power over a smaller area. So you want to, I would suggest avoiding the acreage wherever possible and just use megawatts. And then put a cap, because it clearly, I mean, granted you would like $375,000 or whatever, but you're not going to spend $375,000 of expense. So we appreciate the effort that's being done and how inclusive the county's been and open about the whole process.
Other questions? David?
David Whitfield, I'm an attorney here also with Apex, and we talked in a little bit of detail about this ordinance. And a couple things that think about as you think about these first two issues. First of all, there's potential for some extreme revenue for the county in these types of situations. It's almost an economic development thing. And you get too restrictive, are you in a situation where you're competing now with other counties for this, and the fees are too high? Do they go elsewhere? It was interesting, we were talking today about some of the things that they look at when they're trying to determine what a site is, and Grant County happens to have some of these things, so it appears we can be a good place But do you want to, to me, I don't know why you would want to have fees so high. I'm not even sure where the money would go. I don't know if it's to hire someone to come in and review it, which makes perfect sense. $200,000 or $250,000 to hire a consulting firm to look at fees, that seems outrageous to me. Secondly, I think it's important, as Tim said, that you guys have the final say on something like this, rather than the area plan board or board of zoning appeals. Having sat on the area plan board for quite some time, I'm a firm believer that the elected officials need to make these types of final decisions, not a board. And there are many, many concerns which go into something like this. And you gotta start with what the state statute tells you, that the general theory is we're not to be an impediment to this type of growth. So I would ask that you keep those things in mind as you make these decisions.
Any other thoughts or comments on our fees, or what was, we were kind of straddling one and two, weren't we?
Right.
What was the other one? All right. Vision to the development plan and approval process. We kind of heard multiples on that.
Oh, the revision part, that was also, the question on there was, should there be a revision for an approved plan? Does it have to go through the entire process again? I mean, it's going to depend which way we do it to begin with. If we did it through area plan to the area plan commission to the commissioners, if they made a revision at some point in the process, could it come back through area plan office to hand it over to APC to okay, or does it need to go through the entire process?
I know we're talking all hypotheticals right now, Ryan, but when we have something that is failing or is short of the mark or the standard, basically you're saying, do they come up to the required standard and move forward, or do they go all the way back to go, do not pass, not collect $200 and start over?
So they come in and say, you know what, we're gonna add another 50 families. Now they're outside of the agreement. Do they come back to us? And we can look at it and give it to APC if needed, or do we need to start that process all over? I don't know.
That's the context one more time.
That's why I asked these questions.
Yes, leave me alone on this, sorry. Yeah, no, that's another good subject.
That's all, right?
Oh, yes, with Apex. This is a good one because this one comes up universally, wherever we go for solar projects. Often you submit, just like we will to the county, our plan, our best guess at what the design is going to be, and through each hoop, working with each agency, that design might change somewhat, right? And so it's a step process. We work with one group, we move on to the next. The problem, intrinsically would be if one group requests something later in the process, we start back over with the new design or with the revised layout. And further, that design change could come from us. And so I guess what we look for in a process like this would be, I guess buzzword again, guardrails of some kind, where we say what constitutes substantial change to our design that would cause us to restart the process or just have a more thorough review. The way I've seen it done elsewhere, and I'll let the folks opine on the way they've seen things. Largely, we've seen set, here's the maximum project area or the maximum extent of the design. The final design will fall somewhere in that. We've seen that quite a bit. Where you say, okay, maybe the panels don't line up precisely the way they did at the early stage of the design. Maybe that's because of something we found during our studies. Maybe it's something recommended by someone in the county. Or maybe it's just not the way the design worked out most effectively. Can we ensure that we're having the same impact, that we're not increasing the impact either environmentally or socially or visually or anything like that, And how can we set those bounds to kind of protect ourselves in the case that, like Ryan said, there's a panel added here or there, without saying, we're going to change wholesale where the project's going to be, or the impact's going to be, or the design. Kind of making sure that we're not incurring some severe time delay, for example, where we say, we moved the panel, but now we need to restart the review, put all these agencies back through it again, when realistically, maybe it's not necessary.
I'm not really worried about a panel or two, but if we were to say we're going to add 20% on to the original, where would that become a stop? Let's talk through this. What, 10%, 15, 20%? Where?
That's where the area is the easiest way to do it, rather than the number of panels, because that can change its efficiency. We might have a more efficient panel that looks exactly the same a year or two from now. But when it comes to the area of coverage, that's a bit simpler. If we say to you, here's our design, here's our boundary of where the project can technically sit, or where the maximum extent of the boundary might be, if we were to exceed that, or to go out in any one direction, that would count potentially as a modification that needs more serious review. But within, maybe the design can shift around to some extent without triggering a reprocessing. But good question, just like that. We're not sure precisely how many panels there are going to be, even early on in our design. That can change. So something to resolve, something to figure out. Hopefully before we get started too deep into it, but it's just one of the questions we have to get all inside as well.
Thank you.
The question comes kind of from, with commercial development, they usually have to have a CDR, a design release, basically. If they do a revision from that design release, it ends up going back to the state. So the question is kind of, is that how we're going to deal with solar too? Or is it enough that if it's minor, I mean, a lot of stuff, sort of like area planning commission and stuff, even the BZA, if the variance is 10% or less, we can do it at office level. So is there a point that this is minor enough that we should be able to see it and prove it, that maybe this isn't and it needs to go up the chain, how far up does it need to go?
Joe certainly was had a hard concern between Marion and River and Invenergy. And it seems to me at this particular question, as if there's, assuming there is some objection at the plan commission level, for example, when it comes to the commission, it seems to me we're sort of trying to hit a ghost here. We don't know what those objections are. We don't know how substantial they are. That's going to have to be decided, it seems to me, when it gets to the commissioners. And the commissioners are elected officials, they should be making that decision. And if they feel appropriate, send it back to the plan commission for reconsideration, or simply accept whatever change there might be involved.
Thank you.
Sir.
I'll keep this brief, but I just wanted to reiterate what Dalton was saying. A lot of times we'll hear these changes referred to as material modifications with an application. What is considered a material change? And similarly, what we'll try our best to do is provide that permitting envelope of a project. So on our end, we're going to be conservative, say maybe 20% more land than we think we'll actually need for the project. We'll try to include that in our permitting envelope for the project, and then that way, if there's any material change, it's going to be a reduction, and the hope would be it wouldn't constitute that material modification. It's just going to be shrinking the project size as opposed to adding more, potentially requiring another permit. So that's just wanted to reiterate what Dalton was saying there.
And I would note with what Joe said, we're assuming now that we are actually doing area plan commissioners. So that would be a change to what our current process is as far as area plan commissioners.
technically, right now, we end the PZA.
Right.
Other questions, comments? Online, in-house? What's number 3? Let's go on.
This number 3 gets into our solar farm energy system site and landscaping requirements.
Anyone want to ask about that or make statements?
That starts back on page 11 of the ordinance. Some of the questioning, I know, I talked to someone about as far as the fencing goes. One of the things that is out there on the fences is livestock permeable fence. Do we want fencing that allows for small, medium animal penetration? It wasn't in all ordinances, it's just something that was out there that I put out for you guys to consider. These are a lot of the ones as far as like the noise. That was not in all references, just in 1 and 2. Driveway accesses was another one as far as having 50 foot from the edge of the road, public road, being paved. The current uses, as far as allowing for livestock and agriculture, that wasn't in all of them, so those are just questions if those ones, we wanted those in there or not. Another question was on signage. Some gave some items, they didn't show up in others, other ordinances as well.
Any comments or concerns on any of those issues from the public?
This was just something really minor, but when we talked about the fences, there was a setback of 50 feet from any property line, and then in just a slightly earlier section of the ordinance, it mentioned a 50-foot setback as well from property lines. I just wanted to confirm that we're not adding those two, so it's 100 feet, but rather we're looking at a 50-foot setback.
I think I corrected that since.
Oh, you have?
Because it also,
Okay.
it also called for the fence to be on the inside of the buffer, so nothing equals.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. So it is the 50.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Ryan.
I'm Trina Raudebush with GX Solar out of Indianapolis. Had a really just a question to clarify on the 10% for livestock or 10% of the fence that needed to be larger than traditional. Any guidelines or thinking around where that should be, how that should be determined? Should it be on a project by project basis based on what animals may be?
Locations. And
Yeah. So any guidance around that would be helpful. Otherwise, it may be arbitrary or the whole step.
Right. Well, again, as we kind of talked, I put stuff out there for us to look at and discuss.
Yeah. So I'll leave the question on. Thank you.
We're unique enough that we not only have domestic type of animals, but we've got plenty of deer, we've got plenty of small game that moves in and out of our community. I think we have to wrestle with that a little bit.
I put an example of the ones we handed out today of what like the deer fence looks like. That was the first thing I thought. Deer fencing.
Right, other questions?
Photogenic Solar out of Indianapolis. And I was just curious a little bit on the deer fence, what the height and was that intended for long rows or, I'm just not familiar with that deer fencing, I guess.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, that came out of Delaware.
The Delaware.
And I saw it and I thought, I was thinking more towards the animal movement through. So I included it without a lot of research on it, just to see if it was something we wanted to pursue.
Sure, and that can be used maybe around regulated ditch lines or something for easier passage. I will say for what it's worth, so I was with IPA and developed the solar facility in Gas City. And so there's quite a few familiar faces around here, but we experienced quite a bit that the deer actually will scale the fences. And as unbelievable as that may seem, the deer will actually jump in and out of the fences kind of freely, and they use it as a nature preserve and grow their young in there, and when they're ready, they jump out. So, for what that's worth.
That sounds like something just
We can discuss that a little bit more, but, I mean, that's why the fencing came down at the cemetery at 26th Street, because there were deer impelling themselves on the fencing. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions, comments, concerns on our landscape?
With the driveway, the pavement, did David White indicate anything with that? To determine that it was to be paved so that there wasn't any drop off?
It was, again, it was in one of the ordinances we talked about, doing the first 50-foot community public road. Didn't know if that was something that we wanted to see or not.
I think, again, what we probably need to do is review with David when we make a new driveway cut. Seems like a certain amount of that first portion has to be asphalted anyway. So I don't know if it's 50 feet, it may be less than that with highway actual cuts, but we can work on that.
I'm thinking there's something there, but there's a reason I put it, I didn't just put it in for the heck of it. There's benefits to life, so it may be a conversation I have with maybe this.
Definitely will be on the state highway.
Yeah, so.
Other questions or comments on the landscaping? Ready for liability? Is that where we're going next?
Yep. And we had talked about this one in committee, and I actually went back and talked to John, the planning director, and Jay County. Jay County and Randolph County both had the liability insurance in there. He basically said that it was put in there from advisement from their attorney.
Would they have liability insurance on their property?
Yeah, this would be for including in that.
So we're covered under their policy.
Right. So again, it's, from all the ones I looked at, I found it in Randolph, and I found it in Jay County, and I wouldn't find it anywhere else.
For those companies that are here, is that something that is considered a normal cost of living?
Liability insurance is something we do on that.
And do many other counties or municipalities require that you cover them as well in that process, just not your company?
It seems that other counties are starting to include that.
More questions on liability? concept and question of economic development agreements. Denver Charity is not piping in here.
So kind of like I noted on there, Randolph and Jay County, use it to regulate as an incentive. We talked to Sullivan County, which was in dire straits, basically, with their zoning department and their ordinance. They said the only way that they could regulate solar farms in their county was through the economic growth and business and stuff like that. I've seen, I added the article in there just to kind of some of the things that is out there as far as economic development, things that we could do. And actually, the ironic thing about this is we had a thing down in Muncie, a workshop, solar workshop, and I actually got to meet the lady from Shelby County that I used as an example where it was at the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty cool. So yes, I mean, thanks, Gary.
Any comment you have that's a great report?
To be consistent, as we've done in the past by economic development agreements, that's something we see as a discussion point between the legislative body and the developer. But quite honestly, we're starting to see communities pay for roads and streets and things that exceed your capabilities, the county budget. For doing things that are traditional. We're not talking about acquiring real estate, some other things we may do with tax equity financing, but just doing the simple things of beefing up a county road. And so it's a fact, it's out there, so it's something you need to take into consideration, that people will turn, if people are looking to make an investment, there is nothing unique about our real estate, other than there's some capacity on Indiana Michigan Power and other people's transmission lines. So they are looking to make that investment up and down the lines, and they're going to be the ones that are most receptive to community, working with them. And it's the same thing when we're looking at companies. They're looking at service territories of a couple hundred square miles, and they can go anywhere in there and not have to think twice about this. So if this gives you abilities to be able to participate actively in doing things, also fly beside the lightning, I would think that's something you should consider. But again, I think this is not about, these guys are not the golden goose. This is not about padding the city or the county's budget. At the end of the day, this is about doing a transaction that benefits the county as well as the citizens, as well as these companies. So it's a balancing act. So we just hope we have great confidence that you keep all this in mind, otherwise you wouldn't be having this and soliciting our view. But again, it's something that's out there, it's very real, competition's out there, and people's ability, I wish we had a casino. I mean, the amount of cash that the city of Anderson took from the casino to put into Nestle's is substantial, so. Any questions off that?
Any questions? Any other comments on economic development agreements? Right. Last one on the big questions, department input on their portion of the ordinance, highway drainage. What's still outstanding there?
We kind of picked one. We're going to start off with approved emergency plan and fire safety plan. You have a chance to look through that?
I didn't completely, Ryan. I do have some questions though. Bob Jackson, Grant County Emergency Management. We have had some issues already with one of the facilities in Grant County. So we learned a lot from that, and we want to make sure we do it all that we can to service and protect those facilities as well, and keep our people safe and the public. So maybe my question is more to the operators than maybe you, but and looking at how we train annually with our pipeline operators, we would hope that we would do something similar with these facilities. So if you're familiar with how we do our pipeline stuff, I don't know how you're operating in other communities, but is that something that is feasible?
Definitely, yeah.
And that does a lot to keep us safe. The one incident we had a fire at one of our facilities. Nobody knew anything about it. Honestly, I didn't even know it was there until the day it caught fire. And so we rolled up there not knowing what we had. And the operators, not even in the state of Indiana, they were outside the state. We had to make some calls. It took 4 hours to get somebody there, and we stood and watched that thing burn. That's not good for your facilities. It's certainly not good for us. So we want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to service the better. So I don't know how did you have something in there around you want us to, I hate to make people do stuff, because ethical operators will want to do that, but we may not do this.
Yeah, we didn't know any specialized training necessary will be provided. We also talked about site plans during development, touching base with fire territories, box boxes for entry. So
And that training would be like an annual.
that would be something for the developers to come and talk to you as far as
just some of the conversations went here today, and we would expect that things will grow, will change, panels will change. That way, that annual training that we have keeps us current on how we serve.
and we're hoping that's part of their site emergency.
So we'll have oversight, or at least a chance to review those prior to.
Right, yeah, during development.
And I'll just say from the Energy's perspective, we'll have full-time operations and maintenance staff on the site. Because we're talking a pretty large facility, so we will have probably 2 to 3 full-time employees just at the site. And it's our standard practice that they're running a training with local emergency services and meeting with them on a yearly basis.
So you foresee somebody there 24/7?
Yeah.
Even after completion?
Even after completion, yeah, just to monitor if any areas need maintenance, things like that.
So again, in our experience, holidays and weekend holidays, that's going to happen.
We have certain sites in every county of every state that the government considers of particular interest. When it comes to power supply, would that go on like some of our R&D things that are in the county as well as other strategic sites that
Yes.
Homeland Security would cause us to beef up things?
Yeah, all of our utilities, we look at it that way, and would certainly be of concern for us.
It's good to know that we've got somebody there 24/7. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Does everybody in the room anticipate a 24/7 person there?
Just to clarify, they'll be there regular working hours, but the site itself is going to be monitored 24/7,
Okay.
and they'll be
Yeah.
alerted. So
That's what we got into. So
Gotcha.
yeah, there isn't somebody there 24/7, a physical person on site. So without that, it makes the training all that much more important, that we know who to contact, how to contact them, and really what we can do in the interim. We don't want to cause any more damage. Firefighters historically will cause damage. we don't want to do that intentionally, and we don't do it if we don't have to. So very good. That's critical for us.
our headquarters in Chicago will have someone staffed 24/7. Sorry,
And
just
honestly,
to clarify.
And that's the way our pipeline operators work. We don't they're across the country somewhere, but we train with them regularly, so we know who they are, and we know how to get a hold of them.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Next up would be approved drainage plan.
Chair recognizes Kenny.
In a case, Oak Hill has already plowed through a tile, put 2 cages through. We had to, we done some work out there, and they took in, you have to dig back 20-25 feet, so you can raise the cable up high enough to keep the ditch online. What you're gonna run into here is you got a county tile that's got 6 different owners on this tile. One of them up toward the top wants to put in a solar farm. So you're gonna have to come in, locate the tile, and should make an easement across the tile, 75-foot easement on each side, so that it needs repair. A lot of these tiles, in Grant County, and if down the line, you put a solar farm on, and I'm a mile down behind you, and it breaks down in there, somehow, we're gonna have to go in and fix it, or solar farm needs to go around the thing. And, I mean, it's, all we've been talking about is above ground. We got a lot of interest in below ground, okay, in ditching.
When it comes to our regulated drains, Kenny, I mean, we've got that with GIS, we know exactly where those are. It's the private tile, sometimes that I'm gonna be concerned about, you know, those private tile that.
And one thing, here, a year or so ago, we went on burying cable in the side ditches. Now, I couldn't figure out why that they wasn't contacting farmers or whatever. What they're doing, they're going up to the assessor's office and finding out who the owner is, and then they send them a notice. If you live in Atlanta, Georgia, you don't know what it is, so you just throw it in the trash and don't let the farmer know. And then they come through with plowing down the side ditch and go right through the ditch, okay? And this has got to be addressed. The underground of this thing got to be addressed more than the overground.
There's something that we didn't know. With the solar farms that came in, they went in, they barely called us for anything. And booms are up, they run in.
We're killing fatty owl. Shows that's gonna keep happening.
Well, with the mutual and private drains, even if the solar panel does go in and cut it off, there is legal grounds that they can look at back up. You can't cut drainage. I mean, you can scold them all you want, that's not gonna make them do it.
Well, this would allow for it to go in front of the drainage field before we ever get something.
Well, even the mutual drains that we have no push power over our team. I mean, there's many tile in the county that aren't regulated that are 12 and 15-inch tile carrying a lot of water that if they get caught off, they're going to flood intersection.
The solar farms don't understand that legally, if you cut my drain, I can come in there and repair it. So, I mean, they're have to make arrangements to either get them repaired, you know. On these older tile, this thing's probably gonna last 30 years. I mean, I hope this solar farm's gonna last 30 years.
We're the thing, we want it to go 50, that's what we want.
So you're gonna have maintenance problems, all right?
Thanks, Ken.
Yes, sir. Don't begin any fix. Sorry, I actually have to stick with this time. So just want to offer some helpful background. It's a really good point. We're going to have collection cables tied together, separated panel areas. That's something that will be fairly standard for just about any solar project. It's better to have it underground than above, right, visually speaking. Now we do build into our contracts. I think it's fairly universal across the industry now. Any damage that happens to tile, we're covering. We're repairing, we're allowing the landowner to repair themselves, or contract someone sends the bill. That's largely industry practice. Separately, we do protect our folks for the lifetime of the project. So if they see, if we happen to have a couple years that are dry after installation of the project, you might not notice the problem for a couple of years. So that's one thing we do across the country, is just making sure that if there's a drainage problem that comes up sometime during the lifetime of the project, we're responsible, we're repairing it, the landowner's repairing it, or they're contracting someone. In any case, we're paying for it. But it's true, our goal is to work with the drainage board to make sure that, I guess we keep using kind of buzzwords, we don't have any material change to the way flow happens through the unit, right? It's one of the reasons we've got vegetation on the ground. We want to make sure it's not just sliding through on the surface like it did before. But separately, we want to make sure that if tile is going through, that there's either a redesign or a repair to make sure that that drainage isn't changing, so that there's not some huge difference given there's a new solar farm there. Now, the foundations of these farms aren't super dramatic. The collection isn't going to be super widespread, but there are changes, and so it's something we have to consider. And I'm glad that there's a specific review for drainage, because just like you guys were curious to understand where those private lines are going to be.
Before they're under your vehicle.
It might never been shared to you guys, right? So we see some that are, like you said, 100 years old, where it's just drawn. And so we have to go out there and locate it and figure out, okay, which tile would be disrupting, which can be avoided, how are we going to get it sorted? So good question. Thanks for bringing that up. That's just some of the context of what we're doing on our end, what we've seen. We've worked and built quite a few projects where it's tiled rather heavily. So it's something we've dealt with quite a bit.
Question, what do you do if the tile breaks down and got a power line through it about that big around? Okay? And this auto killed that two of them. Do you shut the power down, or you just hope that you don't get shot?
Well, the good news is, the mapping we have won't be hand drawn, so we'll know precisely where to start. It's the good news with any new build. I can see scenarios where we do need to shut it off. I can see scenarios where we don't. It just depends on how close you are to that line. Sure. I just defer to an engineer or someone really doing that work. I don't know myself.
Now, another question. Like the windmills that Eleanor, if you got a ditch problem, they won't let you get within about 15 foot, then you dig it on each side from there, okay? Now, they'll send a guy out to pick up to what you did. Do you repair it? You dig it up, repair it, or does the farmer have to do the handwork?
The question is who goes through and can actually do that repair. Honestly, we at Apex rely on discretion, so it's often the choice of the farmer. If they have someone they really like and trust, and they've always used, that's fine. If they'd rather us deal with it, not have that, fine. We have some folks who have their own trenchers and do this work themselves usually. So it's one, make sure they know where the lines are, and we're comfortable with that as well. So that just comes down to us.
Well, down there, in that solar farm down there, they'll send a guy out to pick it up to sit there and watch you dig. Okay? That's not.
I guess I won't speak for safety. I guess I don't know what the legal requirements are as far as making sure nobody gets stacked out there.
That's about liability,
right. Back to liability.
Unfortunately, we're learning by other people's mistakes. And hopefully, as we're developing this ordinance, we put everything together so that it flows freely and is a well-oiled machine.
Yeah. Luckily, we're not the first to do it, right? So like Ryan sees, there's a lot of ordinance to build off of, a lot of experts in the room to build off of, so I think we're starting in this place.
Thank you. There is a statement on the machine. If you're asking a question, please say it loudly, because this little owl up here, it's sometimes hard to hear further back we are. So I'm not yelling at you, I'm just doing that for the, so speak loudly, please. All right, anybody else on drainage issues there? I actually see soil conservation up there. You're gonna handle that next? All right.
So if anybody doesn't know me, I'm Robert Henry, the rest of that is Butch Ender, and I'm with the Grant County Soil and Water Conservation District. And I think it's been grasped as I've read this. We'd rather not see these, farms or installations with bare ground to a road, a cover of some sort, and be maintained against, noxious weeds, invasive species, and everything else. It'd be our main concern, or anything, like Wendell, or Kenny, close to an open ditch and everything has to maintain them, because our goal is to keep the soil in the fields and the streams open.
When we were talking about the 50-foot paved area, does that make sense to you? Would you recommend it be shorter than 50 feet?
I would recommend it being shorter. I
Okay.
would recommend it being wide. Yeah.
Okay. Other comments, Butch?
As far as what we've got, what you've seen so far, as far as buffering, the landscaping, and
Yeah.
all that looks.
Yeah, I read all that, and that's why I said was this. So, yeah. That's all.
Question, Kenny?
I got a question. Kind of goes with him. How they control mow the grass down there at the airport? Looks like they may mow that out of no kill. They started out with goats. Seriously. And then one sheep.
How do you maintain grass?
Yeah. I was gonna say we're typically choosing kind of a special mix of grasses and such so that it's more low growing in general, but we're gonna have to get out there and mow once or twice a year, most likely, so that we're not actually exceeding the panel height and blocking energy production.
So generally, part of their development, I've got a couple here, you end up getting like vegetation plans. So we'll talk about maintenance, as far as what the plans and stuff, what we've got in our, that too. There's actually a scorecard that comes out of the review that talks about what they're doing. So they've sent me a couple of examples of vegetation plans.
Well, all I was doing was kind of keep an eye on that one out there, don't kill.
Well,
And
ironically
they
enough,
started out with goats. The goats did a little better job getting all the weeds down, and then they put sheep.
that is the O'Kill on there.
Isn't there already an ordinance for grass height in the county for weeds? On any property?
Our code enforcement officers already there, but I don't believe.
We don't regulate that, we send that to townships.
Does that cover all of your big questions, Ryan?
Yeah.
I think we'll open it up if folks have specific questions or comments that they want to be making. Again, we invite you to come to the podium. Again, name and address so that we have a record of who's speaking. And we'll open it up first to those in the assembly. And if anybody has questions on the internet, we'll ask you to note that on the chat and we'll get you in line, okay? Anybody else? Questions, comments, slide remarks?
Brooks, you want to say something? You not gonna say anything?
If I get called out by Ryan, I guess I gotta so I'm Brooks Feathers with the Center for Energy Education. We're headquartered here in the Midwest out of Huntington, Indiana. We're a nonprofit educational, community education, school education advocacy group for renewable energies, and we're doing a lot of work with utility scale solar here in the Midwest. Glad to see what Ryan's doing and what the commissioners are doing here in Grant County. We're seeing this in counties all over Indiana. In fact, Ryan attended our public officials workshop back on September 16th down in Muncie. We have another one coming up Thursday in West Lafayette. Really glad to see you using that pollinator scorecard from Purdue. That's a great piece. As you get out and around and you see what different solar developers are doing, there's a lot of work in the area of dual use. So livestock grazing, pollinator habitats. Purdue's doing a lot of work in this area. In fact, as we work more and more with our West Central Public Official Workshop, Purdue's going to have a lot to throw in there. So from an ag standpoint, there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of benefits that can happen this way. Again, just complimenting Ryan's efforts and what the work of the Grant County Commissioners are doing. I'm up in Huntington County. We've got projects going on there. DeKalb, pretty much all the ones that he's talked about, Blackford, Wells. There's counties all over Indiana that are working on these kinds of projects. And you may have already seen that they just cut the ribbon on the Mammoth project up in Stark, and is it Porter? Pulaski County.
That's what the Israeli company.
Pardon?
Is that the Israeli company?
Yeah, really Israeli company, that's right, really big. So we do a lot. We were excited this year to be able to do a solar STEM camp at Eastbrook South School. And so lots of Grant County kids learning all about various renewable energies and that sort of thing. So as questions come up, we're happy to help educate folks on the economic and environmental benefits of solar energy, and then also talk a little bit about what's happening here in the Midwest. You know, why here, why now, with regard to capacity and those sorts of things. But well done on our first draft, Ryan, and look forward to seeing how this unfolds. It's got some real economic upsides for the Midwest. And as a former mayor of Huntington, having to deal with tax caps and having a bunch of friends on the commissioner's board in Huntington County and everywhere, there's always a need for development to come our way. So thank you for what you're doing. Ryan.
Anybody online asking to get in yet?
Not yet.
All right. Anybody else? Questions, comments, statements? Ryan, you did a very, very good job there. Everybody just totally baffled. I'm not sure who it is. Yes. Yes, please. We want to get you as close to the microphone as possible.
My name is Sheila Mobernell, and I'm just a resident with any company. I guess just as a community member, I was kind of wondering, I know that different companies are going to be doing different projects, and I think what a lot of people that I've talked to have said, how is that going to benefit us? And so I hear, there may be a few jobs or temporary jobs, but wondering, like, what other kinds of benefits are the local residents going to be getting? Obviously, the schools, that helps them out. So that's one benefit. I don't really know about AEP's solar panel, and I don't know if they use that to just supplement energy production there, or we certainly don't get it on our bills. That's for savings there. So I think that's the question that I have as just a community, because and I understand. I live out in the country, and so I understand about all these tiles. Brigham, you don't want people come across and lines and all that. And when it comes to farmers, like most people, like when I went up to the county for something, there was somebody who was selling land next to ours, and they wanted to put a trailer in addition to the house that was there. And we're like, they don't have enough road frontage for that. Well, somebody told them that they did, and I went up and I said, no, because that strip right along there, that belongs to me. So they can't use that. They can't count that as their road, you know. And so a lot of times, unless you're living there, you don't really know. So I just wanted to find out kind of how this is going to benefit not just me, but everyone in our community, because I am definitely for solar farming. I definitely think we need to do renewable energy in as many ways as possible without damaging too much of our landscaping, because I'm also concerned about, we talk about the deers and the animals. We deliberately do not put fences up around our fields, because we do bale hay and things like that. And it would be nice to keep all those animals out, but we're not going to risk them not having a place to live or getting impaled on the fences and things like that. So we deliberately have taken all those fences down so that they have free access to our fields, because we don't want to find animals in our yard. So that was just my question.
Thank you. I suppose there are 3 companies that can give us an advertisement right now.
I'll try to keep it brief, and I'm sure people have other thoughts on the development side, but I'd say, first and foremost, the economic benefit from these projects is pretty massive. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars of new tax revenue for the county over the life of the project. So we're modeling the project to be 30 plus years in its lifespan. That's a lot of avoided taxes for the residents of Grant County, thereby kind of lowering tax rates for residents. We're also looking at probably around 250 full-time construction workers. We always strive to hire locally when the project's actually being built, and there's kind of a cascading effect of those local employees that are spending money in Grant County during construction. Construction can take anywhere from a year to a year and a half. A lot of dollars being spent within the county, hotels, restaurants, local industry, etc. during that time period. And then, I think just from the ground itself, it's been heavy, intensive agriculture for a long time. So this is really letting that ground rest so that it can continue to go back into agriculture once the project is complete. So from that perspective, we have long-rooted prairie grasses, ultimately longer root structures than traditional row crops, and thereby kind of helping the drainage of that local area as well. So I can go on, but I'll kind of see if any other developers have comments. And then on the economic side as well, when we're talking about our economic development agreements, those will oftentimes include, direct payments to the county as well for any high pressing items. So there's some flexibility there to kind of use these additional funds from the project for, important county priority items as well.
I'll just say what he said. Great. And yeah, the last thing he touched on, the economic development agreement, it's going to be really important as far as benefit, right? So I won't pretend to know a whole lot about the basis structure with taxes. I know that it essentially sets a cap of benefit, right, that you can get from something like this. So that EDA, that economic development agreement, is one way to make sure that you're really recouping true value from this project over time. How we structure that is going to be up to further conversations. It's going to be much more technical than we can do here. But that's where it's really going to come into play. How can we make sure you're getting true revenue for this project, and how do you want to structure that? So to your point, we want there to be a benefit as well. We want this project to be here a while, and there truly is a benefit to farms as well. Give each farm a chance to recover before it jumps right back into its former days of plant harvest. So, sorry, not a whole lot more context than I was able to offer, but exactly the same sentiment. Thanks.
Just to speak real quick, again, with the Center for Energy Education, another big part of what we do is the workforce development training that goes with the construction and the need for personnel. In fact, right now, we're working in partnership with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers here in the Midwest, and also with Ivy Tech community colleges around the state to develop career pathways and pipelines for all the way from solar techs to solar installers to people then eventually moving into journeyman electrician and those sorts of things. So the construction jobs are honestly in Indiana right now with this Mammoth project unveiling, and then there's a whole queue of projects that are going to happen. And for construction, really over the next 10 to 15 years, that construction piece is very robust. And so somebody from Grant County, might work on a project here, but then, once that's done, they jump over to a county, 2 counties away. And they end up with a 10, 15, 20-year career working there, but then all of a sudden they're noticed, they have aptitudes, they have skill sets that they develop, and they move, kind of like what Tim and others do here with economic development and workforce development. They start climbing that ladder, they establish themselves in your communities, and they become very active, participating community members to the Grant County community. So it's a very robust thing.
I'm just going to give you kudos for asking a question it took 4 of us to answer. I'm going to add 2 things, but I agree with everything that's been said so far. Another benefit is directly to the landowners. There's annual lease payments for their land, so it's an infusion of cash from outside of the area that they now have additional spending power to invest locally and support locally. The last component, back to the economic development part of this, is other businesses that want to look at Northeast Indiana as a place to relocate. Having renewables in the area, especially ones that they can see when they fly over to do a site visit, is truly, truly beneficial. I'm sure Ted and Charity can speak to that. We've talked to economic development folks in other areas that have said they've been trying to attract manufacturing, warehouses, logistics, all of these things. They've flown over and said, but we don't see any renewables here, and they've missed an opportunity. And they're fortunate that these folks have expressed that. We don't know the opportunities that are missed because they didn't see this here. So it does go beyond just the immediate impact. There's a lot of work. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Just real quick, Jerry doesn't spend a lot of time completing a request for information, which is the first step of the company looking at our community. We're increasingly seeing where our utilities are being asked to provide a percentage of power that is renewable. So it is a fact of life. It is, I don't care what you want to do, if you want to make any statements about it, that's what they're asking. If you don't comply, don't consider it. You don't make the next step at all. So it is an increasing factor.
Thanks, Ken. I think we have some online questions or statements. Can we kind of scroll back through there and make sure that we get everybody?
It's not so much as questions as just giving information about pollination. The first one comes from Dr. Jennifer Yours. Yes.
All right. Jennifer, are you on? Do you still want to make a statement?
Nope, she is gone, it looks like.
Okay. Jennifer is with Indiana Wesleyan, and they wanted to us to recognize that IWU is moving towards some solar work as well. So we need to be aware of that.
Brock.
Brock,
Yep, he's the next one to mention.
all right, Brock, if you're online and you want to make some statements. Are you unmuted?
He should be unmuted.
Should be able to hear you.
We're not hearing him.
Not hearing you, sir. You may get stepped out and you may come back in and see if we can get it. Anybody else besides Brock online? Steve?
Can you see me now?
We can hear you, sir. Go ahead.
Very good. Just very brief. My name is Steve Eberly. I'm executive director of an organization called Hoosiers for Renewables. We've been around since late 19 to promote the economic aspects of these projects and to support renewables in general. I applaud you all for what I've heard today. You are incredibly on the right track. The most key of which at this point, I think, is benchmarking peer counties to understand how they are approaching the process. I don't have anything else to add. I think you're on a really good track. You're on a really good approach. I do value the comments about approaching your fee structures as being reasonable for the developer community. And I encourage you to pursue an economic development agreement to attain your local goals. You can accelerate the process much faster by implementing these projects. And I thank you all very much today.
Thank you, Steve. Did Brock get back on?
Can this be heard? Am I heard now?
We can hear you, Brock. Go ahead.
You can hear me. Awesome. I did it. I was just going to add onto the points about benefits to the community, the use of an alternative seed mix. Turf grasses have traditionally been used under solar panels. It's nice to see that Grant County has put forward a requirement for the use of something that is pollinator friendly. That in itself is pretty beneficial to the surrounding community. It supports, it bolsters bees, butterflies, other beneficial insects, small animals, small birds, mammals. So it's especially true when one is considering that when one converts from a corn or soy field unto solar. So the use of these plants is actually pretty fantastic. That includes native grasses with deep roots. That includes flowering plants. It's pretty massively beneficial to the surrounding biodiversity. Even external to that, external to the biodiversity, we're also talking about increased nitrogen storage and reduced water runoff. So kudos to you for actually adding that in.
Thanks for contributing today.
Brock is actually from Purdue, speaking as far as our store.
Correct, yeah, thank you.
All right, anyone else online that we need to check in? All right, anyone else in the gallery again? Speak loud, Kenny, so they can hear you online.
Where do we store this stuff so we got power during the night? Just battery stored or what?
In the conversion process, are we storing that, or are we moving that right into the electronic currents?
So I'm Emily Williams with GMX Advanced Center. I can only speak for our project, but there wouldn't be necessarily a storage component with this. So when the solar facility is not producing power, like at night, or times when irradiance might be lower, then you would need to get your fuel sources from another generator. But that would really be on the AEPs in this area, or MISO PJM's responsibilities to ensure a reliable power supply.
Speaking for our project, we likely will have some extensive battery storage. What that does is help us flatline the production, right? So they're very productive hours of the day when the sun is shining and things are going well. There are hours where it's not. So we like to pack a couple of hours early in the day, late in the day. Bit of extra power production for the utilities. So that's something we likely will consider. And like our colleague at Phoenix had mentioned, we're part of a larger portfolio of energy. Anyone flip a switch on here, power might be coming from 10 different plants, it might be coming from a few different states. And so solar itself makes up a pretty small percentage of PJ grid that we're part of, that we're tapping into with the Apex Solar project. And so it's up to the utility to manage where they're getting power from and when. And solar is a lot more predictable than you think it would be. Now, of course, it's inconsistent, but it's predictably inconsistent. It's something you can plan for, especially as power is managed on an hourly or minute-to-minute basis. So it's something that's constantly changing, and it's actually, I'm glad I don't have a job in utility for all that work.
The only thing I got that my refrigerator runs with an item sitting on the television. So,
yep.
You know.
Yeah, and think about any plant. Just about no plants running 24 hours a day. There's some that run more often than others. Some are your baseline plants. The goal of these projects is to replace those plants. It's to say that there's power need on the line, and utilities will determine whether or not to buy that power if that power is useful to add to their portfolio. And especially given there's such little solar already on the grid, it's generally a huge plus for utilities.
So is there an opportunity to potentially reroute that in the event that, I'm sure my hand too much, but in the event that we lose part of the power grid to whatever, somebody has a disaster or a geostorm, whatever that might be, locally, can we reroute over producing locally to stay here, or is that?
So the question, in case my phone can hear, the question is, in the case of an emergency, is it possible to reroute the power that these utility scale projects are putting on the grid locally? I'll speak to the Apex projects, likely no. When it comes to utility scale power, it goes right onto the grid, and although you might have certain people, certain utilities buying that power, distinguishing which electron you're using at a switch is impossible to do. So the power we're providing is going onto the grid. It will be available in the case of emergency, of course. Unless, of course, we're really emergency. It's cloudy, it's a snowstorm or something, we're not producing, right? So that's, again, just up to the utility to be able to find a way to provide power with their existing system of options, right? And so adding solar just gives them one new alternative. So like we see in some other states, you have extreme storms, and the utility has to plan ahead for that, but also has some contingency plans. What are our options in the case of an emergency? Well, one of those options, solar. Further, if you have an issue, more severe storm an hour away, maybe we don't right here. So we can be a resource for them, just like where a power plant is an hour away from us, they're a resource for us in our country, right? Good question.
Thank you. Anybody else? Question, comment?
What was that? Chris, his response.
We already did that. We already did it. And then he got on. And then, yeah.
All right. Mike, questions or comments that you want to make? Ron stepped away from us for right now, so I guess I'm ready to move to recess unless somebody says, oh, I can't say it. All right. Hearing none other, we will declare ourselves in recess, and we thank you for your time. Any other questions, comments? Island toward Ryan.